My name is Adeline Carter. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a project manager at an architecture firm in New York. All my life, I believed that if I tried hard enough, stayed patient enough, sacrificed enough, one day my family would finally recognize me and love me equally. But that night proved me wrong. At my younger sister Madison's 25th birthday party, held in a luxury hotel in Manhattan, I stood frozen behind the stage, still holding a glass of water, watching my parents raise their red wine glasses, their pride impossible to hide. They wrapped their arms around Madison as if she had just won a Nobel Prize. And on this special occasion, the MC's voice rang out as the spotlight hit. The Carter family would like to share something truly touching. Tonight's entire $75,000 celebration has been generously sponsored by Madison's wonderful sister, Adeline Carter. Applause exploded. Cheers, glasses clinking. Everyone turned to me, smiling, raising their drinks in my direction. And I stood there in shock. My bank account at that very moment held exactly $213, and I had never agreed to pay for any of it. Have you ever been pushed into a performance where the whole world applauds, but you're the only one who knows you've just been betrayed? If you've ever been treated like the living wallet of your own family, made to feel like nothing more than a shadow behind someone else's spotlight, leave a comment below. I read them all. And I'm telling this story so you'll know you are not alone. Hit like if you've ever felt used. Subscribe so you don't miss what happened next, because what I did afterward changed everything. I stood frozen in the dim glow from the crystal chandeliers swaying above the ballroom. Applause echoed, mingling with the sound of glasses and the soft hum of jazz music drifting through the air, as if this was a beautiful moment. For everyone else, maybe it was. But for me, it was the coldest moment I had ever endured in a crowded room. I didn't step forward. I didn't smile. I didn't raise a glass. I just stood there, clutching the cheap clutch I'd bought on summer clearance last year, one question looping in my head. What did they just say? Adeline Carter, Madison's wonderful sister, has sponsored the entire $75,000 party as a birthday gift. The MC had said it clearly, without hesitation. I swallowed down the bitterness rising in my throat. No one looked long enough to notice my frozen face. They were too busy praising my name as if it symbolized generosity. My mother, Patricia Carter, beamed. She wore the pearl-colored dress I had partly paid for last Christmas. She raised her glass, her eyes brushing over me for a single second, showing no surprise, no hesitation. As if she had always been certain I would accept it, just like all the other times before. My father, Daniel, leaned against the bar, grinning smugly as he shook hands with guests I didn't know. He had once been a CFO at a major insurance company, but retired early after a lawsuit. Ever since, every major household expense had quietly shifted onto me, as if it were only natural. And Madison, my sister, spun around in her sparkling evening gown, smiling like she had just won a Golden Globe. Hugging each of her friends, she declared, "Adeline is amazing. She always quietly makes everything happen." Quietly? I turned and left the ballroom as the music changed tempo, my steps quickening. I didn't want to break down in a room filled with stilettos and fake smiles. I pushed through the service hallway door that led to the emergency exit without looking back. Cold air rushed in through the gap between the buildings. I stood there against the stone wall, exhaling hard. Numbers crowded my mind. Bank balance, rent payment just cleared, car installments left for 2 months, and that $213. I couldn't possibly sponsor a $75,000 party, and I had never agreed to. Light footsteps came from behind. I turned. It was Natalie, my colleague and the only close friend I had in this city. "You okay?" she asked softly, offering me a tissue from her coat pocket. "Did you hear that?" My voice cracked. "They said I paid for everything." Natalie's face widened in disbelief. I thought you agreed. I never agreed. I cut in, barely above a whisper. They didn't ask. They just announced it, like a script already written. She stayed silent for a moment, then stepped closer. What are you going to do? I lifted my eyes to hers. And in that instant, I knew one thing clearly. I couldn't live like this anymore. I couldn't let them keep taking my name, my money, my energy, as if it were my duty simply because I was the oldest. I had once believed family was a place to come home to. After tonight, I wasn't sure that place existed for me anymore. This time, I said evenly, I won't stay silent. When I returned to my small Brooklyn apartment after the party, the clock was nearing 1 a.m. I slipped off my shoes at the door, walked barefoot across the cold wooden floor, and looked around the plain room covered with my design sketches taped to the walls. No champagne flutes, no silver-threaded tablecloths, no one waiting. But at least I still had my own clarity. I opened my laptop. The blue glow reflected off my tear-streaked cheeks. I pulled up the emails my mother had sent over the past 2 weeks. Lines like, "Sweetheart, I need you to help cover some of the party costs. Madison deserves something proper." Or, "We'll pay you back. Just cover a few things up front." Like always. Not a single line mentioning $75,000. Not one confirming I had agreed. I opened a new tab, then another. Family financial abuse law. Legal options if exploited financially by relatives. How to set personal boundaries. Each headline appeared sharp and urgent, pulling me out of the exhaustion I had sunk into for years. I began taking notes. I created a new folder titled Me. Inside, I saved receipts, invoices, emails, bank statements from nearly a decade. Every expense I'd covered, every temporary loan never repaid, every so-called investment for family that disappeared. I had forgotten I even had birthdays. I had forgotten I had the right to say no. But that night, under the shadow of a glittering party that wasn't mine, I realized I still had a choice. The clock read 1:47 a.m. Outside, snowflakes began to fall, dusting a thin layer on the old window frame. I sipped water, leaned back in my chair. The hurt remained, but inside me something else was taking shape, not rage, not hatred. Resolve. And a plan. A plan I knew I wouldn't abandon halfway like before. A plan starting with my upcoming birthday, the day no one in my family had ever remembered. But this year would be different, because I was going to do something none of them could ever imagine. I sat in the dim light of the kitchen lamp, my hand still on the mouse, though the screen had dimmed. My mind kept replaying fragments of that hotel evening, the lights, the applause, my mother's smug smile when she called it Adeline's gift. I had stayed silent so long that they mistook silence for consent. I leaned back, rubbing my face. The sting wasn't about the money, but about being used as if it were my obligation. I thought back to when I was 22, fresh out of college, struggling with student loans barely half repaid. One evening, my mother called, voice syrup sweet. "Madison's having some trouble with her credit card, just a few college expenses. Can you cover it for her? Just a few thousand, and we'll pay you back right away." I transferred $3,500, nearly all my savings at the time after only a few minutes of hesitation. A week later, I learned my mother and Madison were on vacation in Orlando. There was never any repayment. By my 23rd birthday, I had planned a small dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant in Lower Manhattan, saved up for a blue dress I'd wanted for a month. But that very day, my cousin's wedding took place in New Jersey, and my mother insisted I handle the reception desk to be safe. "You're detail-oriented and can manage things smoothly. Our family can't afford any mistakes with guests." I canceled my dinner, called the restaurant, took off the blue dress, and changed into a white shirt to coordinate someone else's wedding. That night, no one mentioned my canceled birthday. No one asked if I felt sad. I remember my Aunt Vivian, my mother's sister, leaning over at the end of the reception, whispering, "You did so well tonight, Adeline. I'd be thrilled to have a daughter-in-law like you." I forced a smile, clutching the guest list book, heels swollen from running back and forth. I thought of Christmas at 26, when my parents asked me to help cover a few months of rent because Madison was in between jobs. Or last Valentine's, when I sent gifts to the family and only got a text from Madison. "Thanks, though the yellow necklace is kinda tacky but cute." Little details like needles, small but over time they bleed you dry. I'm not someone unwilling to give. I once thought kindness was a virtue to be proud of. But I've learned some people, once they see you give easily, will never stop taking until there's nothing left. I pulled my chair closer, screen glowing again, the folder me still there. I opened a new file, naming it Birthday Plan 28, not for my family, not for anyone else, for me. I would create a day where I was the center, not the support, not the hidden sponsor. I wanted to stand in a room, knowing everyone there was celebrating me, not because someone else told them to. I grabbed my phone and typed a message to Rachel, a college friend I rarely contacted but who always spoke the truth. "Are you free on April 18th? I'm thinking about having a real birthday for once." Less than a minute later, Rachel replied, "Oh my God, finally. Yes, yes, yes. Tell me what you need." I sat still for a few seconds. Just one simple message, yet it warmed my chest in a strange way. Next came Natalie. She didn't waste words. "Where's the party?" I typed Florida into the search bar. Beaches, sunshine, quiet. No one there knew who I was. No one could order me around. I found a pale blue and white beach house, with glass doors opening to a balcony facing the ocean. Light wood floors, a compact kitchen, and a living room with a couch looking straight out at the waves. I saved it. Then came plane tickets. I could use money from the quarterly bonus I hadn't touched yet. I was about to switch to my email when a notification appeared. A message from my mother. "Adeline, your father and I are thinking of adding a thank you dinner after Madison's birthday. Book a few restaurants near the hotel, preferably seafood buffets. Oh, and Madison asked me to remind you to also handle the thank you cards for her." No greeting, no thank you, no asking if I was okay after being paraded as a joke the other night. I didn't reply. I just took a screenshot and saved it in the folder labeled "Me." Evidence like a small scratch carved into an old door I was about to shut for good. I turned off notifications, then turned off the phone's signal altogether. Not to hide, but to think. I felt I was holding the reins of my own life, not waiting for permission, not apologizing. I lifted my head toward the window. The snow had melted, leaving patches of water that reflected the dim streetlights. Part of me still hesitated, still afraid, but another part was growing stronger, clearer, anger turning into resolve. I wasn't just going to throw myself a birthday. I was going to create a turning point, one chance to set everything back in its rightful place. And if they still thought I was the Carter daughter they could control, they had no idea who I really was. That Monday morning, I got to the office earlier than usual. The New York streets were still chilly after the last snow of the season, thin rays of sunlight sliding through the bus window and across my hair as I leaned against the glass. I looked outside, clutching the strap of my bag, heavy with a plan I had never dared consider before. The 12th floor of our office building glowed bright as I walked in. The coffee machine clicked, keyboards clattered in pockets of sound. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, but didn't pull up the project schedule like I always did. Instead, I opened a blank document, typed a bold title at the top, Plan A, the real birthday. Not 10 minutes later, Natalie tapped gently on my cubicle wall. "Black coffee. No cream. Just the way you like it," she said with a small smile, setting the cup down. I looked up, lips curving into a grateful smile. You free at lunch? I need to talk. About Madison? No, not exactly. About me. Natalie nodded, her eyes shifting slightly, as if she could sense something had shifted inside me. Good. Finally. By noon, we sat in the far corner of a small cafe near the office, quieter than the company cafeteria. I told her everything about the party, every detail from the MC's announcement to my mother's thankless text. Natalie stayed silent, letting me finish. What are you going to do? She asked when I ended with, I have nothing left to give them. I took a deep breath, clutching the hot teacup. I want them to taste what it feels like to be abandoned at the most important moment. Her brow furrowed. You mean I'm going to create a fake plan for Madison's thank you dinner? Everything, the restaurants, decorations, cards, guest list all there, but only on paper. They'll believe it's ready. And on the day, they'll get nothing. She studied me for a few seconds, then nodded slowly. Sounds harsh. But honestly, they've deserved something like that for a long time. I looked at her, grateful for the understanding that needed no long explanation. And, I continued, I'm also throwing myself a birthday. A real trip. Flights, a rental, friends, all of it real. And I'll make it the centerpiece. That afternoon, I called Marcus, a coworker in my department, once a finance team lead at his old firm after the quarterly review meeting. Marcus was 4 years older, pragmatic, but always had a sharp, wry perspective on what others ignored. Got 15 minutes? I asked as he poured coffee. He raised an eyebrow, smiling. If it's not about budget, I'm always free. We stood on the office balcony, rarely used this time of year. I laid it all out plainly, the unpaid expenses, the forced events, the plan to flip the script. Marcus froze when I mentioned $75,000. And they thought that could just be covered by you up front? I'm the eldest. To them, everything is automatic. He shook his head, lowering his voice. Adeline, you need boundaries. Clear ones. Before that automatic kills both your career and your personal life. I'm working on it, I said. I need a favor. Do you know anyone who drafts service contracts? Something like templates for fake agreements, realistic enough no one would doubt them. Marcus didn't ask more. He nodded, texting on the spot. Give me a few hours. How many vendors? At least 4. Restaurant, card printing, audio, floral decor. Done. I'll send you contract templates with mock receipts. But Adeline, he looked at me firmly, keep it separate. Don't use your personal bank account. Don't message from your main number. They're used to easy access to you. Now's the time to become unpredictable. I nodded, my heartbeat quickening. I had never done anything like this, but I had never felt so clear. That night at home, I created a new email under the alias Elaine Norris, freelance event planner. I chose a neat, professional profile picture, then wrote my first emails to my mother and Madison. Hello, Patricia, this is Elaine, handling the arrangements for Miss Madison's thank you event per Adeline's request. Attached are proposals for restaurants, estimated budgets, and sample cards for your review. Please respond by Friday. I attached 4 PDFs, all of them built by me and Marcus. Polished, detailed, convincing. No one would suspect they weren't real. Less than 30 minutes later, my mother replied, Thank you, Elaine. Very professional. Please thank Adeline for me. She's always so thoughtful. I read it, left it. No reply, no pride, no sting. Just noted the time and date in the Plan A folder. My birthday fell on a Tuesday during Easter week. I had already booked flights to Florida. The pale blue beach house was confirmed. Rachel and Natalie would fly with me, and Marcus promised to join 2 days later. In my personal folder, alongside family records and Plan a new section had formed, birthday trip. I saved all confirmations, itineraries, food lists, and a new wallpaper. A sunset over the ocean, waves rolling, the sky fading from pink to purple. I stared at that picture for a long time, my hand resting over my chest, feeling my heart beat both fast and steady. Not from fear, but from knowing maybe, just maybe, I was heading the right way. No one holding my hand, but I was finding my path, step by step. I carefully folded the check and slipped it into the middle of my notebook, sealing it with a yellow sticky note. My mind swirled with mixed feelings, a touch of bitterness, a flicker of anticipation, but mostly clarity. That $30,000 check wasn't gratitude. It was the product of years of their assumption that I would handle everything quietly like some machine. I didn't ask, I didn't negotiate. My mother had simply called and said, "Your father signed it. I'll give you the check tomorrow morning. Don't forget to arrange thank you gifts for the guests." I nodded, though my budget sheet stayed open with no line for thank you gifts. The next morning, I walked to the cafe next to the bank. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of toasted bread and fresh coffee. I finished half my latte before stepping into the familiar branch, handing the check to the teller. "Deposit into my savings, please, and confirm the balance." The young woman behind the counter processed it carefully, then smiled. "Your current balance after deposit is $32,874. I nodded, expression calm, every number etched into my mind. Part of that money would cover the Florida trip. The rest? Silent compensation for 10 years of being drained. After leaving the bank, I took the subway to Dumbo, Brooklyn. I had found a small penthouse on the top floor of a renovated old building. The apartment had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan Bridge. Every morning, sunlight would pour straight into the small kitchen with its pale gray marble counters. As I stepped inside, the soft click of the lock in my hand felt like confirmation that this was the place where I would turn plans into action. I set my laptop on the dining table, opened the Plan A folder, and checked the fake email account under the name Elaine Norris. There was already a reply from my mother at 8 a.m. "The restaurant Elaine chose is fine. Keep the white and gold theme like the Jones wedding. Send me sample photos of the table set up before Wednesday." I took a screenshot, saved it under unreasonable requests, tracking. The list was getting longer by the day. I spent the whole afternoon creating a presentation mock-up, a PDF with seating charts, guest names, a menu complete with images, and even a fabricated email thread between me and the audio provider, supported by the contract Marcus had drafted. I sent it all off in one click, then leaned back against the soft white sofa. I felt my back supported by something that wasn't pushing me forward. By late afternoon, I headed to the supermarket for a few essentials for the apartment. New sets of glasses, a beige linen tablecloth, a low glass vase, and white round candles. Those details weren't for decoration, they helped me focus. Whenever I felt shaky, I arranged, cleaned, and reset corners of the space, as if I were quietly rearranging my life piece by piece. That evening, Rachel dropped by, carrying a bottle of red wine and a bag of Chinese takeout. "You look like you're prepping for a wedding," she teased, glancing around the apartment. "I'm preparing to marry myself," I answered, my lips straight but my eyes bright. We ate on the floor, backs against the sofa, legs stretched out. Rachel chewed slowly as she flipped through the fake contracts I'd put together. "You're almost too thorough. Your mom might end up thanking Elaine for handling things so well," she said with a half smile. "I'm not doing this to please them. I'm doing it so they don't suspect." Rachel raised her brows, then nodded lightly. "Right. And at the same time, this is a milestone." "A milestone?" "A milestone showing you're no longer just a shadow." I stayed quiet, sipping a small mouthful of wine. Outside the glass windows, the Manhattan Bridge glowed, cars moving in a slow rhythm like the steady breath of a city that never sleeps. I had lived in New York almost 7 years, yet I had never had a space that truly felt like mine. This 2-week penthouse rental wasn't a place to hide. It was where I would rewrite how I lived. The next morning, I spent hours drafting the guest list for my birthday. Not long, just 8 people: Rachel, Natalie, Marcus, Aunt Susan, 2 trusted coworkers from the planning department, and 2 college friends I'd stayed in touch with through holiday emails. I handwrote each invitation on white silk paper, sealed them with red wax, and mailed them that afternoon. I didn't write the exact location, only, "You'll receive details after confirming attendance. This is my birthday, but it's also a gift for those who once reminded me I deserved to belong." I didn't expect everyone to understand, but I trusted the ones who needed to would. That night, I received a message from Madison. Nearly 10 lines long, mostly filled with smiling selfies, along with a photo of a gown she had tried on for the thank you dinner. "What do you think of this? Mom said you already booked the hall, but I want to be sure everything matches. Oh, are the chairs white or ivory?" I didn't reply. I took a screenshot and filed it under delusions. After all, the reason they never noticed anything was happening was because they never thought I had the nerve to do things differently. But I was no longer the quiet Adeline who endured someone else's spotlight. I was moving slowly but surely toward a new version of myself. A woman no longer trapped in invisible demands. A woman who knew the limits of her kindness. Most importantly, a woman about to be called by her own name on her own day. I was at my usual cafe on 73rd Street, laptop open but untouched, the screen idle after minutes without a keystroke. Outside, raindrops began dotting the glass. That sound always calmed me, like background music steadying the too tight rhythm of life. A new email notification flashed. "Adeline, I need to see you." The sender was Susan Carter, my father's younger sister. I blinked. Aunt Susan had always been the quiet one. She rarely appeared at big family gatherings, never commented in family group chats. I had always thought she just wanted to stay out of the noise. Which is why I didn't expect her email to lead to a meeting that would completely shift what I thought I knew about my blood relatives. She chose a dusty old bookstore cafe on 10th Street, a place that once had been my grandparents' tailor shop. When I arrived, she was already seated in the back corner, stirring a cup of tea, eyes fixed out the window as if lost in some distant past. I pulled out a chair. She looked up, her gaze warm, offering a small smile. "You look tired," she said gently, her voice soft so as not to disturb the hush around her. "Something like that," I admitted, clutching my bag. "You said you wanted to see me?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she opened her purse, pulled out a thick envelope, and placed it on the table. The paper was yellowed, edges curled, clearly kept for a long time. "I've held on to this for over 4 years," she said slowly. "I wasn't sure you were ready, but after last night, watching you at Madison's party, I knew you needed it." I touched the envelope, looked at her. She didn't push. I opened the flap and pulled out a stack of documents. Bank statements, credit agreements, loan contracts in my name with signatures that weren't mine. I froze. My heart pounded, as if someone had sucked the air straight from my lungs. "What? What is this?" My voice cracked, hard to steady. "These are loans your parents took out using your name," she explained, eyes locked on mine. "Some with forged signatures, some under the excuse of helping build your credit history. But the truth? They used the money elsewhere. One of them was $20,000 to pay off Madison's credit card debt 2 years ago." My hands shook as I turned page after page, each document cut into the fragile trust I'd been clinging to for years. How do you have these?" She lowered her head, smiling faintly but sadly. "Because I was once in your exact place. Nearly 20 years ago, when our parents died, I was the only one of the 3 siblings who refused to sign the papers selling the family house. It was shared property. But your father and mother secretly forged my signature and sold it to invest in a real estate project that failed." I sat speechless, as if wrapped in heavy fog. I sued, she continued. They settled outside of court. I accepted. But from then on, I stepped back from family affairs. Her eyes softened. I don't want you to become a tool the way I once was. I leaned back, staring at the pile in front of me. Suddenly, so many things made sense. Why I couldn't get approved for a car loan some years back because of irregular activity on my credit file. Why my credit score dipped even though I always paid on time. Why my parents often said, just let us handle it, you only need to sign. I thought I was helping them. Turns out I was just a convenient name. I kept everything, she said, sliding a small bag toward me. Originals and copies. If you need legal action, I can refer you to the lawyer who handled my case. I nodded, throat tight. Do you believe I'm doing the right thing? She didn't answer immediately. She simply held my hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. I don't just believe, I've been waiting for it. We sat in silence for several minutes. Outside, the rain grew heavier, each drop on the glass roof sounding like a cleansing of the years of hidden dirt. Susan dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Since your father used my name, I've never spoken to him again. But when I saw you silently carrying that party, I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I clutched the envelope in my hand. It felt fragile, but it was the very thing holding me upright. I wasn't angry, not in the old way. That anger had hardened into something colder, steady at the bottom of me. It didn't unhinge me, it showed me the road ahead. I slipped the papers into my bag. Looking up at her, I whispered, I won't make this a public battle. Not out of fear, but because I want them to feel what it's like to stand in emptiness. Susan nodded, her eyes sad but steady. Do it your way, but don't forget you're not alone. On my way home, I walked through Union Square Park. The wind carried sharp dampness, but I didn't hurry or huddle under awnings. I held my bag close, feeling as though it carried the whole truth I once feared to touch. But today, I carried it back as an undeniable part of resetting the boundaries blurred too long. No one could have guessed my ace would come from the very relative the family always dismissed as on the sidelines. But sometimes the quiet ones see the clearest. And now I had every reason to step forward with preparation no one would expect. I returned to the penthouse late in the afternoon, as the last rays of sunlight slanted through the glass, spilling a soft honey shade across the floor. The quiet air calmed everything inside me, as if after all those months of pressure and restraint, I was finally living in a space that truly belonged to me. The laptop was still open, the screen showing two folders side by side on the desktop. Plan A, Family and Real Birthday. Two parallel worlds, one unfolding exactly the way they expected, the other waiting for the right moment to be revealed. Both created by me, but only one was mine. I opened the email from the Florida service provider. They confirmed. The beachfront cottage was cleaned. The sunflowers were placed in the dining corner as requested, the fridge stocked with the champagne I liked. I read each line carefully, tapped the keyboard to send a thank you note. Those small details things most would overlook meant everything to me now. I was planning a real birthday for myself, without anyone interfering or ordering me around. At the same time, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. I just approved the menu. Serve the lobster last, so guests remember it. The invitations are pretty, Elaine did well. Tell her to keep the seating chart the same. Don't let guests wait. Oh, and the tablecloth must not be cream. Madison says it hurts her eyes. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I switched to the Elaine Norris email and sent her a short note. We've adjusted as requested. Updated files will be sent by Friday. Under the signature line, I added, a pleasure to serve you. Professional, cold. It was the boundary I was drawing, one line at a time. Rachel video called while I was checking the flight list. I found the bakery, she nearly squealed. Right in Destin, they can make the chocolate cake with strawberry filling you love, decorated in that minimalist style you sent. The owner even promised to deliver it on time to the door. I smiled and nodded. That completes another piece. What about music? Do you want acoustic or just a playlist? Just the sound of the waves that night, but the next morning, I booked a guitarist to play on the balcony. I want my birthday morning to begin with live music. Rachel paused for a second, then smiled softly. You're rewriting every old memory with something better. I said nothing more, just looked at my reflection in the laptop screen, seeing a different Adeline emerging calm, decisive, no longer bowing under a role someone else imposed. The next day, I printed 2 binders. One was a fake dossier of vendors for Madison's dinner. Fabricated receipts, contracts, hall diagrams, full-color menus, all bound neatly and presented professionally. The other binder was the real plan for my Florida trip. Confirmed guests, flight schedules, hour-by-hour itinerary, rental address, pre-booked restaurants, even notes about each friend's favorite wine. Every detail was a piece of my journey to reclaim value. On Wednesday evening, I had a Zoom call with Natalie and Marcus to review the next steps. So you'll disappear the morning of their event? Marcus asked, scanning the plan on his screen. Exactly. I'll leave New York a day before. They still believe I'm staying to coordinate. I've scheduled Elaine's email to go out that morning, saying a technical failure has made all vendor communication impossible. Natalie frowned. Are you sure you won't get caught? I'm not breaking any law, I answered calmly. I just never booked a thing for them. Everything they have is what they chose to believe because they trusted me too much. Marcus nodded, resting his chin on his hand. Just keep your cool. They'll call, they'll text, but if you don't answer, that's when they'll face the truth. Not everyone will forever clean up their messes. And while they scramble to point fingers, Natalie added, you'll be boarding a plane to sunshine and waves. We sat in silence for a moment. In that pause, I felt an unspoken solidarity between us 3 people standing together, not by blood, but by choice and decency. The next morning, a text came from my father. Short, send me the final budget details. I'll transfer more if needed. I read it again and again, feeling something inside me go cold. No question about my health. No asking if I was all right carrying all their tasks. Just one demand. Is it done? I set the phone down. No reply, no emails. I turned to the real birthday list and circled the 17th, the day I would leave the city, the day I stopped following anyone else's schedule. From that moment, I was no longer the woman behind the spotlight, setting up someone else's party. I was preparing the light for myself, a space without fireworks, without starring, roles just me, and those who truly wanted me there. Every plan was already set, 2 worlds moving in parallel until the right hour. And when the clock struck, I would be the only one not waiting for a call. I landed in Florida on a bright morning, my phone buzzing nonstop with dozens of missed calls. I'd silence the ringer. Each time the screen lit up, Mom, Dad, or Madison. I looked at it calmly, then flipped it face down. I knew exactly what was happening thousands of miles away. At that same moment in New York, the Grand Horizon Conference Center glowed with lights, the red carpet rolled out. But inside the grand hall, the air was icy, no tables set, no sound check, no catering staff. Bare walls under fluorescent light revealed the emptiness my family never imagined. The event manager, a middle-aged woman in a black suit, frowned at the booking list and sighed. I'm sorry, but we have no record of a Carter reservation today. If you have proof of payment, please show it. My mother immediately turned to my father, her voice shaking. Daniel, did you transfer the money? He stiffened, pulling out his phone, fumbling through his banking app. Adeline said she handled it. The check was signed. We gave her the money. How is this possible? The first guests began to arrive, gowns sparkling, boutonnieres pinned neatly. They glanced around, whispers spreading. Are we in the right hall? Could this be a scam? My God, there aren't even chairs. Madison appeared then, in a golden satin gown hairstyled in perfect waves. She froze in the doorway, eyes wide with panic. The chatter dulled, replaced by uneasy murmurs. Where is it? Madison shrieked, her voice echoing. Where's the sound, the flowers, the DJ? Adeline promised me. A group of her friends exchanged looks. One smirked. Some promise. Another pulled out her phone, recording. This is going to blow up. My mother rushed to the reception desk, waving her phone. No, we worked with a planner named Elaine Norris. She sent us full contracts. Look, emails here. The manager glanced, brow furrowed. That's not any of our official vendors. I'm afraid you've been misled. My father's jaw clenched, his face red as he dialed me with trembling fingers. My phone buzzed on the cafe table at the Florida airport. I left it face down, eyes on the wide window where waves rolled silver under the Sunday. Rachel sat across from me, her hand on my shoulder. You don't need to pick up, she whispered. I nodded, exhaling, sipping coffee. The bitterness filled my mouth, but it tasted like relief. Back in New York, Madison wept, mascara streaking. She clung to my mother's sleeve. Call her, she has to answer, she ruined everything. My mother tried again. The call rang, then cut. Tried once more. This time, out of service. The guests' murmurs grew louder. A man shook his head, voice carrying. The Carters, famous for years, and this is how they host? Another woman added, I canceled work to be here, not even a chair. My father's reputation, the jewel he guarded, unraveled before him. He paced, sweating, staring at his phone as if willing it to connect. Madison collapsed to her knees, covering her face. The glittering gowns around her shifted back, leaving her in a widening circle of shame. No one will ever forget this, someone muttered. My mother sank into a chair, head in hands. While chaos consumed them, I was already in the car with Rachel and Marcus. The ride carried us to the beach house I'd reserved. When the door opened, the scent of fresh wood mixed with salt air rushed in. I stepped inside, leaving behind the buzzing phone, the noise, the duties that were never mine. Marcus uncorked the wine, poured 3 glasses. He raised his, smiling. Here's to Adeline and a real birthday. Rachel clinked her glass, eyes shining. This is what you ounds deserve. I gripped my glass, watching the wine glimmer under the sunset pouring through the window. Inside, there was no Madison screaming, no mother's scolding, no father's rage. Only a gentle quiet where I stood, knowing I had finally stepped out of the shadow they had built for me all those years. Up north, in that hollow hall in New York, my parents were surely scrambling to explain to guests already walking out. But I sat in a seaside home, listening to steady waves, knowing with perfect clarity that I had rewritten my own story. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Silence was the strongest answer I could give. The golden light in the little Brooklyn penthouse spread a warmth I hadn't felt in years. Strings of bulbs draped across the window frame reflected off the polished wood floor, blending with the faint scent of pale hydrangeas arranged in a glass vase on the long table. My friends gathered around, each with a glass of wine, their laughter mingling with the soft acoustic music from a speaker in the corner. Rachel adjusted her teal silk dress and raised her glass, eyes shining. Tonight is for Adeline, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. You've waited far too long for this moment. Marcus chimed in with his usual wit. Exactly. And let me reassure you, those fake contracts won't cause us any trouble. Everything's tight, absolutely safe. Laughter echoed. I smiled, clutching my glass, my chest full. The door opened. Aunt Susan stepped in, wearing a beige coat, her graying hair pulled neatly back. She paused at the doorway, scanning the room until her gaze landed on me. I walked toward her and wrapped her in a hug. The weight on my shoulders eased, as if I had finally found a safe harbor after years of storms. "I'm proud of you," she whispered, her voice thick. "Tonight, you claimed your own place." When we sat down, Marcus handed me a phone set on a tripod. "Live stream? The office crew's waiting?" "To watch." I nodded. The camera light blinked on, my face filling the screen. Views climbed fast, comments scrolling across. "Happy birthday, Adeline. You deserve this." Finally seeing your real smile. I drew a deep breath, stood, the wine in my glass glittering in the light. The room fell silent. "I'm Adeline Carter. Today I'm 28. For years, my birthdays were fragments, a late text, a tiny store-bought cake, or worse, ignored completely so another party could take center stage. But tonight, I stand here among people who truly want me here, to say words I never had the chance to. After 28 years, this is my real birthday." Applause erupted. Rachel threw her arms around me. Marcus lifted his glass high. Aunt Susan wiped her eyes quietly. I went on, voice steady. "Family may be where we're born, but it's not always where we're nourished. Sometimes real family is found later, those who see us, hear us, and respect us. Tonight, I thank everyone here and everyone watching online. Because of you, I finally believe I deserve to exist, not as someone's shadow, but as myself." The room filled with cheers again. Rachel swept the camera around, showing the warmth and closeness. Comments flooded. "So proud. This is the real Adeline. We're with you." One coworker typed in chat, "Tomorrow, the whole office will celebrate again." "Don't worry. Push the report to next week." I laughed, the weight lifting from me. I was no longer the girl bowing to unreasonable demands. I was standing where I chose, beside people who stayed because they wanted to, not because they had to. Aunt Susan came closer, her hand firm on my shoulder. "You just went public with something important. They out there won't understand right away. But one day, when they see this live stream, they'll have to face the truth." I nodded, eyes on the endless scroll of comments. In that moment, I felt the shadowed past receding, making room for a new light. Rachel raised her glass again, her eyes glowing. "Come on, everyone, raise your glass to the woman who claimed her own day. To Adeline and to anyone who ever thought they were just on the sidelines." Glasses clinked. Laughter, voices, music blended into a wordless song I knew I'd carry forever. Meanwhile in New York, Madison still sobbed in the empty hall, my parents scrambling in chaos. But here, in this small celebration, I smiled truly. The live stream image, hundreds witnessing it, proved I had broken free of the invisible chains of my family. That night, I stood by the wide window, gazing at the city lights glittering beyond. Behind me, friends still laughed, music still played. My heart settled into a new certainty. I had opened the door for myself, and there was no reason to return to the days of being forgotten. A pounding at the door rang out as the clock struck 10 p.m. I had expected it. Inside the lit penthouse, my friends turned quiet, eyes on the entrance. Rachel whispered, "Are you sure you want to face this now?" I nodded. "It has to end." I stepped forward, turned the lock. The door flew open, my father stormed in, face red, eyes bloodshot. My mother trailed close, silk dress wrinkled, makeup streaked with tears. Madison, hair tangled, mascara smeared, leaned against the frame, glaring coldly at me. "What have you done, Adeline?" my father roared. "Do you know you've made this family a laughingstock?" I didn't retreat. I calmly shut the door, locked it, then walked back into the center of the room. My friends stayed still, not interfering. Only Aunt Susan stood, her hand on the back of a chair, ready to steady me. "I haven't done anything," I answered slowly, clearly. "I simply stopped being a tool for your charades." My mother stepped forward, trembling. "We're family. You can be angry, you can blame us, but how could you do something so cruel?" Hundreds of guests walked out. Your father's reputation collapsed. Madison may never recover from this humiliation. I gave a dry laugh. A reputation built on lies and exploitation worth keeping. And Madison, for 10 years you stood in the spotlight because I bore the weight behind it. Maybe today is the first time you actually face yourself. Madison shrieked, lunging toward me. You're jealous. That's why you ruined everything. You've always been jealous because I was loved more. You did this just to drag me down. I met her gaze, unwavering. If I were jealous, I wouldn't have paid off your debts. I wouldn't have handled every detail of our cousin's wedding, your birthdays, the promises our parents never repaid. Do you want numbers? $67,000 over 10 years, all under my name, all from my account. The room went still. I pulled out the folder Aunt Susan had given me, laid it on the table, flipped open the pages clear under the light fake signatures. Credit loans never authorized by me. This is evidence. Not only the money I spent, but debts our parents borrowed under my name. I verified it. Aunt Susan has a lawyer ready if needed. Do you want me to keep quiet? My father's face drained. He lunged for the folder, but I snatched it back. Touching this is illegal. Originals are secured. My mother stammered. Adeline, I didn't think you'd go this far. It was easier with your name. Easier? I cut in, stressing each word. Easier for who? And what about me? My credit wrecked, years of lost chances to buy a home. And every time I asked, you said, family helps each other. So who helped me? Madison looked around, her defiance slipping into unease. You're threatening Mom and Dad? I folded my arms, voice calm. Not a threat. A declaration. If my name is exploited one more time, I'll take this entire file to court. And I'll demand repayment for every cent I've covered for Madison over the past decade. My father slammed his hand on the table, glasses rattling. You dare do that to your own parents? I lifted my chin. Either you learn to respect me or stop calling me your daughter. No one spoke. Only the clock ticked. My mother slumped, eyes vacant. My father turned away, fists clenched, speechless. Madison sobbed harder, mascara streaming down. Aunt Susan stepped forward, voice firm. Adeline is right. It's time this family faced the truth of how you've treated her. If you have any conscience left, stop treating her like a wallet. I looked around. Faces that once made me flinch now held no power. I didn't shout, I didn't cry. I spoke plainly, because truth doesn't need embellishment. In that moment, I knew the boundary was drawn, and once drawn, no one could erase it. A year passed so quickly that sometimes, when I sit and look back, it still feels like yesterday. The small apartment in Brooklyn has now become a place I truly call home. On the living room wall, beside the oak bookshelf, I hung a large frame. The moment I stood at my 28th birthday party, smiling brightly, surrounded by Rachel, Marcus, Aunt Susan, and the friends who stood by me. Beneath the frame, I placed a handwritten card from Aunt Susan, her cursive, graceful, and soft. There will always be someone who sees your worth. Don't ever let anyone dim that. Every morning before leaving the house, I glance at it, and it feels like carrying an invisible shield that steadies me in everything I do. My work has changed too. After a major project on the redevelopment of a complex in Queens, the company's board officially appointed me project director. I now have my own office, with glass windows overlooking the endless stream of cars on Lexington Avenue. My team has 10 people, each day filled with spreadsheets and numbers, but the pressure here never weighs as heavily as what once came from my family. Here, I'm measured by my ability and dedication, not blind sacrifice. On my 29th birthday, Rachel took charge of planning. It wasn't a rented penthouse or a beach cottage, but a rooftop party at the building where I live. Warm golden lights strung above, long tables draped in white, colorful tapas plates, and a small violin ensemble playing softly. Friends, colleagues, and Aunt Susan all came. They sang, laughed, and the joy spread across the rooftop. Standing in the middle of it, I felt whole, with nothing missing. While clinking glasses, Marcus leaned close to my ear. "Look, the whole office is here. Last time you had to keep it hidden, but tonight you're the true center." I smiled, tapped my glass to his, and a warmth rose inside me that words couldn't capture. The Carter family, meanwhile, had crumbled piece by piece. My father, Daniel, still hasn't let go of his anger. After that night of the empty hall, he lost contracts, his reputation damaged. Some say he's become withdrawn, showing up occasionally at small gatherings, always with a tense face. Every message he sends me is curt, cold as a notice. "You've changed too much." I never reply. My mother, Patricia, was different. She called and texted many times, her tone shifting from soft to pleading, but I kept my distance. I didn't cut her off. I just refused to let myself fall back into the old cycle. Anytime a call turned toward helping the family, I ended it immediately. After a few months, her messages dwindled too. Now, between us, there are only brief holiday greetings enough to acknowledge blood ties, but no longer chains. The surprise came from Madison. 6 months after the collapse, she began texting. At first, full of blame, "You ruined my life." Then gradually her tone shifted. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said." Most recently, "Can we meet? I want to talk for real." I read that message on a quiet morning, sitting by the window with a steaming cup of coffee in hand. I didn't reply right away, but a strange flicker passed through me, not instant forgiveness, but the sense of possibility. Maybe she too had learned a lesson life forced her to face. On the night of my 29th birthday, after everyone had gone home, I stayed alone in my apartment. The city lights outside still blazed, each one like a star scattered across the earth. I stepped onto the balcony, the night wind cool against my face, and I breathed deeply, my lungs full of freedom. Through the glass, I could see the photo frame on the wall, my smile frozen in that moment of joy beneath Aunt Susan's words. My heart softened. I realized I had nothing left to prove. I had chosen my own way of living, and in that choice, I was no longer a shadow in the Carter family. I was whole, with a worth no one could deny. I share this story not to hold on to bitterness, but as a reminder, every one of us deserves respect and genuine love. If you're listening, ask yourself within your family or relationships, are you being placed where others want you rather than where you truly belong? I want to hear your thoughts. Would you choose to stay silent and endure, or would you step out bravely to rewrite your own story? Share your experiences because your story might be the strength someone else needs. And if you've found meaning in my journey, don't forget to follow this channel so we can continue walking together through stories of family, betrayal, and the moments we learn to stand for ourselves. I promise, there will be more stories that will make you reflect and perhaps see a piece of yourself within them.